They say monsters hide in shadows, but Elena had learned the most dangerous place to hide was in plain sight, wrapped in human skin, bleeding red just like them. Even though her true blood ran silver as moonlight. 8 years, 2,120 days of careful lies. Each morning in her cramped quarters at Thornwick Manor, she pressed her palm against the cracked mirror, whispering ancient words that bound her true nature beneath this fragile human disguise. The incantation grew harder each season, like holding her breath underwater while her lungs screamed for air. She'd been 19 when she first walked through Thornwick's gates, just another refugee from the border wars seeking kitchen work. No one questioned a desperate girl with calloused hands willing to scrub floors. No one suspected that beneath her sun-weathered skin lived something ancient, something from the old world before humans learned to forge iron. Now, at 27, Elena stood in the pre-dawn kitchen, kneading bread with methodical rhythm. The other servants called her lucky. If only they knew she was the very creature their priests warned about, the last of the Luminari, beings of pure magical essence who once ruled these lands before the Great Purge. The kitchen door burst open. "The king returns!" Marcus the head cook bellowed. 3 days early from the northern campaign. Elena's hands stilled in the dough. King Damian Corvus, the alpha who'd inherited his throne 4 years ago when his father died mysteriously. The same alpha whose wolf could supposedly smell a lie from 3 kingdoms away, whose eyes saw through every pretense. She'd managed to avoid him for 4 years, keeping to the kitchens, disappearing into servant passages whenever his presence filled the manor. But sometimes in the deep of night, she felt him, a pull like gravity, like drowning, like every mistake calling her home. The other servants erupted into motion, but Elena remained frozen. She could feel it now, his presence approaching like a storm rolling in from the sea. Her true nature stirred beneath her human mask, recognizing something in him that terrified her more than any witch hunter's blade. "Lucky!" Marcus snapped. "Stop daydreaming. We need fresh bread for the king's table." She forced herself to move, but her hands trembled. Strange signs had been appearing lately. Children in the market with silver-flecked eyes, shadows moving independently, iron tools growing warm without cause. Memories surfaced unbidden. Her mother's crystalline form shattering under iron hammers. Her sister's screams as holy water burned through her essence. The night she learned to fold herself into human shape, compress her infinite nature into finite flesh, swallow her silver light until only darkness remained. By the time the sun crested the mountains, painting Thornwick's stone walls gold, the kitchen buzzed with preparations. Elena had just pulled fresh loaves from the ovens when she heard footsteps in the corridor. Not the hurried scramble of servants or measured pace of guards, but something else, deliberate, predatory. The footsteps stopped directly outside the kitchen door. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to shift into wind and shadow and flee forever, but she couldn't move. The handle turned. King Damian Corvus stepped inside, and the kitchen fell silent. He was exactly as the stories claimed, tall enough to dwarf most men, shoulders broad as mountain ranges, hair dark as raven wings, face carved from stone and shadow. But it was his eyes that stopped hearts. Deep brown with flecks of gold, holding the weight of every secret ever whispered in darkness. Those eyes swept the kitchen until they found her and stopped. The world narrowed to that singular moment. For 10 eternal seconds, neither moved. Elena's heart hammered too fast, too hard, too human. She forced herself to bow, keeping her eyes fixed on the stone floor. "Your Majesty," Marcus stammered, "we weren't expecting. Forgive us. Continue your work." The king's voice rolled through the room like distant thunder. "I came to inspect the kitchens personally." Lies. Elena could taste the deception. Alpha Kings didn't inspect kitchens at dawn. She kept her head down, hands mechanically shaping loaves, while every nerve screamed warnings. Through her peripheral vision, she watched his boots move between preparation tables. He was circling her like a wolf stalking prey. "And what do we have here?" His boots stopped directly in front of her table. "Lucky, Your Majesty," Marcus answered quickly. "Been with us nearly 8 years now. Makes the finest honey bread in the kingdom." "Lucky?" The king tasted the name like wine. "Look at me." It wasn't an alpha command. Those held power that could force even the strongest will to bend. This was softer, more dangerous, a request that sounded like destiny calling. Elena raised her head slowly. Their eyes met. The impact was instantaneous. Something electric crackled between them, invisible lightning that made every candle flame flicker. His pupils dilated, brown consuming gold until his eyes looked like portals to the earth's core. "Interesting," he murmured. "Tell me, Lucky, where are you from originally?" "The southern villages, Your Majesty." The lie came smooth as silk, practiced thousands of times. "My family died in the plague 8 years ago." "The plague?" His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Yes, many were lost during that time." He knew. Somehow, impossibly, he knew she was lying. She could see it in the predatory stillness of his stance. He reached for one of her half-formed loaves, his fingers brushing hers. The contact lasted less than a heartbeat, but it sent silver fire racing through her veins. Her true nature surged against its bonds, desperate to answer whatever had just called to it. She jerked back, the bread tumbling between them. For one horrifying moment, her disguise flickered. Her shadow on the wall shifted. Wrong. Too many angles. Too much depth. The air around her shimmered with heat that had nothing to do with the ovens. The king's eyes widened fractionally. "Forgive me, Your Majesty," she gasped, dropping to her knees. "I'm clumsy." "Rise!" The command was gentle but absolute. She stood on shaking legs as he studied her with an intensity that could peel paint from walls. "You'll serve at tonight's welcome feast." "But Your Majesty," Marcus interjected. "Lucky works in the kitchens, not the dining. Tonight she serves." His tone brooked no argument. Then to her specifically, "Wear something fitting for the great hall. You'll pour wine at the high table." The high table, where she'd be exposed to every noble, every advisor, where she'd have to stand for hours under scrutiny, where she'd be near him. One more thing. The king turned at the doorway, his dark gaze finding hers. "Your shadow, Lucky. You might want to tend to it." Her blood turned to ice. She glanced down to find her shadow stretched in impossible directions, writhing like something alive, reaching toward him with gossamer fingers that belonged to no human form. When she looked up again, he was gone, leaving only the terrible certainty that her 8 years of hiding had just ended. The great hall transformed at sunset, 1,000 candles casting dancing shadows across stone walls. Elena stood in borrowed finery, a deep blue dress that actually fit, trying to calm the storm beneath her skin. "Remember," Helena, the head serving woman, whispered harshly, "pour from the right. Never speak unless addressed, and whatever you do, don't look the nobles in the eye." The doors opened, and nobility flooded in like a tide of silk and ambition. Then came the announcement that made her bones ache. His Majesty King Damien Corvus and honored guest, High Priestess Morgana of the Order of Iron. Elena's breath caught. The Order of Iron. Witch hunters who had led the Great Purge, who wore her people's crystallized remains as trophies. Morgana glided in wearing robes of pure white, iron chains wrapped around her waist and wrists. At her throat hung a pendant that made Elena's true nature recoil. A shard of crystallized luminary essence, still faintly pulsing with trapped life. The king entered beside her, dressed in black that absorbed light. His eyes found Elena immediately. "Your Majesty," Morgana purred, settling into the seat of honor. "I'm grateful for this welcome. The Order has much to discuss regarding the recent disturbances." Disturbances? Damien's voice held polite interest, though his gaze never left Elena. Magical signatures in the borderlands, signs that perhaps not all the luminary perished in the purge. She smiled, cold as winter frost. We suspect at least one survivor walks among us, hidden behind human guise. There have been anomalies, children born with silver-flecked ease, shadows that move strangely, iron that grows warm. Elena's hand trembled as she poured wine, a single drop splashing onto the white tablecloth like blood on snow. "Careful," the priestess said, ice-blue eyes suddenly fixed on her. Nervous hands often indicate guilty conscience. "Leave the girl be," Damien commanded softly. "She's unused to serving the high table. Of course, though I must say, Your Majesty, your servants have an unusual energy about them." The meal progressed with agonizing slowness. Every time Elena approached, she felt Morgana watching, hunting. The pendant at the priestess's throat grew warmer whenever Elena drew near, its trapped essence crying out to its own kind. Halfway through the second course, disaster struck. Lord Garrett, deep in his cups, grabbed Elena's wrist as she poured. "Pretty thing, aren't you? Perhaps the king would share." The rage came instantly, involuntarily. Her true nature surged against its bonds, and for a split second her skin flickered, human flesh becoming translucent, revealing the silver starlight beneath. Garrett jerked back with a cry. "Her hand! Did you see?" "You're drunk," Damien said flatly, his alpha command rippling through the words. "You saw nothing but wine shadows. Apologize to the girl and retire." The Lord mumbled an apology and stumbled from the hall, but Morgana had seen. Her eyes gleamed with predatory triumph. "How fascinating," she murmured, rising gracefully. "Your Majesty, might I perform a small demonstration? The Order has developed new methods for detecting hidden creatures." Before Damien could respond, she pulled out a vial of clear liquid. Holy water mixed with iron shavings, Elena realized with horror. The priestess began splashing it on nearby servants, who merely looked confused as the water harmlessly dampened their clothes. "You see, harmless to humans." Morgana approached Elena with deliberate steps. But to a luminari, Elena backed away, but there was nowhere to run. The priestess raised the vial, and time seemed to slow. A hand shot out, catching the water before it could touch her. Damien stood between them, the holy water sizzling against his palm, burning his skin with the sound of meat on a hot pan. The hall gasped collectively. "Your Majesty," Morgana stepped forward. "You're injured." "You forget yourself, priestess." His voice could have frozen flame. "No one threatens what is mine." The possessive claim rang through the hall like a bell toll. "Mine. An alpha's claim, witnessed by hundreds." Morgana's eyes narrowed. "She's not human, Your Majesty. Surely you can sense—" "I sense that you've overstayed your welcome. Guards, escort the priestess to her chambers. She will remain as our guest until certain matters are resolved." As guards surrounded her, Morgana's gaze locked on Elena with naked hatred. "The Order knows what you are, abomination. We've been hunting your kind for 8 years, and we won't stop now." The palace corridor stretched endless and empty, lit only by moonlight. Elena ran, her borrowed dress tangling around her legs, her human disguise fracturing with every step. Behind her, she could hear pursuit, not guards, but something else. A presence that made her bones sing. She burst through a door and found herself in the ancient library. Her reflection in the dark windows showed the truth. Her disguise failing. Human features flickering between flesh and starlight. "Stop running." His voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Damien emerged from shadows like he'd been born from them, his burned hand already healing. "You knew," she gasped, pressing herself against the bookshelves. "From the moment you walked into the kitchen, you knew." "I suspected." He moved closer with predator grace. "Your shadow, your scent, the way reality seems to bend around you. But it wasn't until tonight, until I felt the bond, that I knew for certain." There is no bond. The denial came desperate, automatic. Luminari don't have mates. We can't. Lie to yourself if you must, he said softly, now close enough that she could see gold fracturing through his brown eyes. But don't lie to me. I've felt you for years, Lucky. Or should I say, Elena? Her true name on his lips shattered something inside her. The disguise collapsed entirely. Light exploded from her skin, not harsh, but liquid, like moonlight given form. Her hair floated as if underwater, shifting between silver and starlight. Her eyes became pools of infinite depth, containing galaxies. She stood before him as she truly was. The last luminary, a being of pure, magical essence, wrapped in a form that was almost but not quite human. He didn't step back. Instead, he reached out, his fingers hovering inches from her cheek. Beautiful, he breathed. I'm an abomination, she whispered. Your people hunt mine. The priestess will return with an army. Every moment I remain here puts you in danger. I've been in danger since the day I took the throne. His hand finally made contact, and where his skin met her ethereal form, silver light danced. My father didn't die naturally, Elena. He was poisoned by those who wanted a different king, a weaker one they could control. Why did you protect me? She asked. Because my wolf recognized you before my mind did. His other hand came up, framing her face. Because for 4 years I felt this pull toward the kitchen, toward a servant who somehow made my wolf howl for its mate. Because you're not the only one hiding your true nature. Before she could ask what he meant, he began to change. Not the fluid shift of a normal werewolf, but something primal. His bones broke and reformed, his skin rippling with fur that seemed to absorb light. When the transformation ended, a massive wolf stood before her, but its eyes held too much intelligence, its form too large, its presence too otherworldly. Cursed, he said, his voice strange coming from lupine jaws. My bloodline carries the curse of the first wolves, the ones who existed before the moon goddess tamed them. We're neither fully human nor fully wolf. We heal from wounds that should kill us, but holy water and iron burn us as they burn you. Monsters, just like the Luminari. Understanding crashed over her. That's why you can resist alpha commands. Why the holy water burned you. You're not purely werewolf. You're something older. He shifted back, the healing now making sense. We're both remnants of the old world, Elena. Perhaps that's why fate bound us together. The priestess is being watched, he continued. But first you need to tell me everything. Why you're here, why you've been hiding, what you're really running from. Elena looked at this impossible alpha, this cursed king who'd claimed her before hundreds of witnesses, who stood between her and holy water, who showed her his monstrous truth without fear. My mother, she began, her form flickering between human and ethereal as emotions surged. She didn't die in the purge. She became something else, something hungry. She's been hunting me for 8 years, feeding on luminary essence to maintain her twisted existence. I came here because the manor's iron wards can work both ways, not just keeping magic out, but hiding it within. Glass shattered. Through the broken window came creatures of living shadow, their forms writhing with corrupted magic. At their center floated a being that might once have been beautiful, a luminari whose light had turned to darkness, whose essence consumed instead of creating. Hello, daughter, her mother said, voice like breaking bells. Time to come home. The shadow creatures lunged simultaneously, their forms spreading across the library like spilled ink. Ancient books crumbled at their touch. Elena's light flared instinctively, creating a barrier that made them recoil with shrieks. Protective of your pet, human, her mother drifted closer, a perversion of what Luminari should be. Where Elena glowed silver soft, her mother blazed with stolen light, too bright, too harsh. How disappointing. I raised you to be apex, not prey. You raised me to run, Elena spat back. To watch you drain our own kind for power. Damien moved to stand beside her, his cursed wolf rippling just beneath his skin. You must be the disturbances Morgana mentioned. Her mother laughed like shattering crystal. The little priestess has been useful, following my breadcrumbs, flushing out the hidden ones for me to harvest, though she doesn't know it yet. Her attention fixed on Damien with predatory interest. And what are you? Not quite wolf, not quite human. How delicious. Get behind me, Damien commanded, but Elena grabbed his arm. No, she's here for me. This is my fight. Our fight, he corrected, and before she could protest, he partially shifted, retaining human shape while gaining wolf attributes. His burned hand completed its healing, claws extending, eyes blazing gold. You claimed me as yours when you ran. I claimed you as mine when I stood between you and the holy water. That makes us pack. The word resonated with power older than kingdoms. Her mother's expression twisted. Mate bonds. Such primitive magic. She gestured and her shadow servants attacked again. The battle erupted in chaos. Damien fought like something from nightmares. Too fast. Too strong. Tearing through shadows with claws that shouldn't exist. But for every shadow destroyed, 2 more formed. Elena's light began to falter. 8 years holding human form had weakened her. She watched in horror as one shadow slipped past her failing barrier, heading straight for Damien's exposed back. No! She moved without thinking, throwing herself between them. The shadow's claws raked across her shoulder, tearing through ethereal form like paper. She screamed, not in human voice, but in harmonics that shattered every remaining window. Silver blood sprayed across ancient stone. Where it landed, flowers bloomed impossibly. Moon flowers unfurling in seconds, their glow pushing back the darkness. Elena! Damien caught her as she fell, and something primal snapped inside him. The curse he'd controlled his entire life erupted outward. His form expanded, twisted, became something that belonged in humanity's oldest nightmares. Not wolf, not man, but the thing that spawned both. 12 feet of muscle and shadow, eyes like molten gold, mouth filled with teeth that could crack mountains. The first wolf, the original monster. Even her mother stepped back. With a roar that shook the manor's foundations, Damien attacked. Not with strategy, but with primordial rage. He tore through shadows like tissue, his very presence making reality buckle. But her mother had lived 8 years feeding on power. As Damien charged, she smiled and spoke a single word in the old tongue. Stop! The command hit him like a physical wall. Not an alpha command, but something older. The same magic that had once bound the first wolves. Damien crashed to his knees, his monstrous form fighting against invisible chains. Fascinating, her mother mused, circling him. The curse responds to the original binding. You're not just descendant of the first wolves. You are one, reborn. She traced a claw along his jaw. I could make such use of you. Mother. Elena struggled upright, silver blood still streaming. Please, take me. Leave him. Take you. Her mother laughed. Oh, daughter, I don't need to take you. You're going to give yourself to me. She gestured, and shadows grabbed Damien, spreading him between them like a sacrifice. Here's your choice. Give me your essence willingly. Let me drain you properly, and I'll spare your mate. Refuse, and I'll make you watch while my shadows tear him apart. Elena looked at Damien, suspended between shadows, his eyes blazing defiance. She thought of 8 years running, 8 years hiding, 8 years of careful lies to survive. No more. You want my essence? She stood, her form blazing brighter despite her injury. Then take it. She walked toward her mother, each step leaving moonflowers blooming in her wake. But as she moved, she began to speak in the old tongue, not to her mother, but to the manor itself, to the iron in its walls, to the ancient wards. The iron wards responded. Ancient protections built into Thornwick's foundation suddenly revealed their dual nature, designed centuries ago not just to repel, but to contain. They awakened at a luminary's command, forming a cage of pure intention. Her mother realized the trap too late. "What are you doing?" she snarled as iron-laced energy crackled through the air. "Something I should have done 8 years ago." Elena's form grew brighter, not with healthy light, but with the dangerous glow of a star about to supernova. "Iron doesn't just hurt us, Mother. In high enough concentration, it can force us back to our pure state, formless, powerless essence without consciousness." "You'll destroy yourself too." "Yes." Elena's voice held perfect calm. "But at least I'll take you with me." The wards strengthened, iron energy pressing inward like a vice. Her mother's shadow servants dissolved. The corrupted luminary herself began to flicker, her stolen power fighting against dissolution. "You would die for him?" Her mother gestured at Damien, still suspended. "For a cursed mongrel who'll live maybe 60 years while you could exist for millennia?" "I've lived in fear for 8 years. I'd rather have one moment of love than another century of running." Elena began to dissolve at the edges, her form unraveling into pure light. The moonflowers throughout the room bloomed brighter, feeding on her dispersing essence. That's when Damien broke free. Not through strength or his cursed form, but through something simpler. The mate bond. Elena's impending dissolution sent agony through their connection, and his wolf responded with primal fury that shattered her mother's weakening control. He crashed to the floor and immediately lunged, not at her mother, but at Elena, wrapping his arms around her dissolving form. "Stop," he commanded, not as an alpha, but as her mate. "You don't get to leave me. The wards can be transformed." He pressed his forehead to hers, and she felt it. His wolf, his curse, the monstrous thing inside him reaching out. "You're not the only one who can sacrifice, little star." She felt his intention through their bond, and horror flooded her. "No, you can't. My curse for your freedom." He smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. "The first wolf's essence is older than your mother's corruption, older than iron wards. If I release it fully, it will transform everything, not destroying, but changing. I won't let you. Then we do it together." His gold-flecked eyes blazed with certainty. "Your light, my darkness, creation and destruction. Balance." Her mother screamed, realizing what they meant to do. She threw herself at them, no longer beautiful, but monstrous, all pretense gone. Elena looked into Damien's eyes and saw forever. "Together," she agreed. They released everything simultaneously. Elena's ethereal essence exploded outward in waves of pure creation. Light that gave rather than took, healing rather than destroying. The moonflower seeds that had been spreading throughout the kingdom for months suddenly bloomed everywhere, in every crack and corner where her essence had touched. Damien's curse erupted in response. Darkness that devoured, the primordial hunger of the first wolf unleashed without restraint. Where light met darkness, impossible things happened. The iron wards didn't break. They transformed, becoming silver, then gold, then something that had no name because it had never existed before. Throughout the manor, children who'd been born with silver-flecked eyes suddenly understood what they were. Not cursed, but evolved. Her mother's corrupted form, caught between creation and destruction, began to unravel. Her stolen power returned not to its victims, but to the world itself, seeding it with new possibilities. "This is impossible!" she shrieked as her form dissolved. "Luminary and wolves are opposite forces. You can't—" "We're not opposites," Elena said, her voice harmonizing with Damien's growl. "We're balance." The explosion of power should have destroyed them all, should have leveled the manor, shattered the mountain, rewritten the laws of nature. Instead, it reformed everything, Her mother's essence, purified of corruption, dispersed into the cosmic flow. The twisted hunger that had driven her finally ended. The iron wards throughout the manor transformed into something new, neither keeping magic out nor trapping it in, but channeling it, balancing it, making it part of the world's fabric. And at the center of the transformation, Elena and Damien collapsed into each other, forever changed. Elena was still Luminari, but no longer purely so. Threads of shadow wove through her silver light, Damien's essence permanently entwined with hers. She could hold human form without effort now, the wolf curse stabilizing what had always been fluid. Damien remained cursed, but differently. The first wolf no longer fought against his human side, but merged with it. His eyes held permanent flecks of gold among the brown, and shadows bent strangely around him. They were neither fully their original selves nor completely transformed. They were something new, something balanced. Dawn light crept through the shattered windows where their combined power had erupted. Impossible gardens bloomed, moonflowers and shadow roses, plants that shouldn't exist growing side by side. Footsteps pounded in the corridor. Guards burst in, weapons drawn, only to freeze at the sight before them. Their king holding a being of living starlight, while surrounded by impossible flora. Behind them came Morgana, iron chains rattling, ready for war. She stopped dead at the library's threshold, her pendant, the crystallized luminary essence, suddenly blazing with warm light rather than cold death. The throne room of Thornwick Manor had never seen anything like this. 3 days had passed since the library's transformation, and word had spread through 7 kingdoms. The last luminary lived. The Alpha King had claimed her, and somehow their union had changed the very nature of magic itself. Morgana stood before the assembled court, her white robes now seeming dim compared to Elena's natural luminescence. Throughout the crowd, children who'd been born in the past decade watched with silver-flecked eyes, finally understanding the strange dreams they'd been having. "She is an abomination," Morgana declared, though her voice lacked conviction. "We're dangerous," Damien corrected from his throne, Elena standing beside him, their hands entwined. "When corrupted by isolation, just as wolves were dangerous before the moon goddess tamed them. You speak heresy. I speak evolution." Damien rose, shadows crowning him like a living mantle, while Elena's light made them deeper, richer. "Show them, love." Elena stepped forward, her form shifting fluidly between human and ethereal. She approached Morgana and touched the pendant at the priestess's throat. The crystal blazed to life, not with trapped agony, but with joy. The essence inside, freed by Elena's touch, spiraled upward in ribbons of light that painted stories across the throne room's ceiling. Memories of Luminari who had lived, loved, and died, and more, visions of them joining with the world itself, their essence spreading like seeds. "They never truly died," Elena said softly. "When my kind were killed, our essence didn't vanish. It dispersed, seeded itself into the next generation. Every child born since carries a fragment of what we were." The pendant crumbled to dust, but instead of looking diminished, Morgana stood stunned. Where the crystal had rested against her skin, silver marks appeared. Not burns, but blessings. "The prophecies," she whispered. "The convergence, when all magical races would become one. We thought it meant domination, but it's unity. Your iron chains, our ethereal essence, wolf curses, human adaptability," Elena finished. "All parts of a greater whole." A commotion at the door interrupted them. Guards dragged in Lord Garrett, but changed. His skin bore unstable ethereal shimmer, his form flickering wrongly. "He tried to steal essence from one of the gifted children," a guard reported. Garrett snarled, lunging at Elena desperately. Damien moved to intercept, but Elena raised her hand, stopping him. Instead of defending, she opened her arms. Garrett crashed into her and passed through, his corrupted form unable to hold against pure acceptance. He collapsed, human again, shaking. "Power taken by force corrupts," Elena said, helping him stand. "Power given freely transforms." She placed her hand on Garrett's forehead, and a small portion of her light passed to him. Not enough to change his nature, but enough to show him what he could become. Damien raised his hand for silence. From this day forward, Thornwick Manor opens its doors to all, human, wolf, and whatever new forms emerge. We'll teach balance, not segregation. "And the Order of Iron?" Morgana asked. "Becomes the Order of Balance," Elena suggested. "Protectors, not hunters." Morgana looked at the silver marks on her chest, then at the children throughout the room. "I accept." 3 months later, the transformation was complete. Thornwick had become a beacon. The gardens where moonflowers grew alongside shadow roses became a pilgrimage site. Children who showed signs of ethereal gifts came to learn control. Wolves who struggled with their curses found peace in Damien's teachings. Elena stood on the manor's highest tower, watching the sunset. She no longer needed to hide. Her form shifted freely between human and ethereal as her mood dictated. Arms wrapped around her from behind, solid, warm, familiar. "Regrets?" Damien asked. "How could I regret this?" She turned in his arms. "I spent 8 years pretending to be human, only to discover humanity was pretending too. Everyone hiding their true nature. And now we're all becoming what we were meant to be," he said. "Beautifully mixed, impossibly balanced." He kissed her then, and where their lips met, light and shadow danced. Across the kingdom, every magical being felt it. The mate bond that had become something more. In the gardens below, a child laughed, born human but touched with ethereal light, carrying wolf strength but shaped by Iron's discipline. The first of a new generation that would know no division between races. "Your Majesties," Helena appeared. "The delegation from the northern kingdoms has arrived." As they descended together, neither hiding their nature, Elena reflected on her journey. 8 years she'd pretended to be human, only to discover that everyone had been pretending, hiding their full selves out of fear. But when the Alpha King had marked her as his, he'd broken the chains that kept all of them hiding. The age of hiding was over. The age of balance had begun. And in Thornwick Manor, 2 souls who had found each other against impossible odds ruled not with power, but with acceptance. Sometimes we spend so long pretending that we forget our true nature isn't meant to be hidden. It's meant to be shared and celebrated with those who see us for who we really are.